sense of dread when I give up control and I let you hold me with no resistance in my soul. Now is the time when I let go of my fears, inhibitions, and sense of dread. When I give up control and I let you hold me with no resistance in my soul. This is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Oh, now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am. This is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Oh, now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am. Here is the place where I fall into grace and release into the sweetness of your love. I surrender. I remember the light and the beauty that I am. Here is the place where I fall into grace and release into the sweetness of your love. I surrender. I remember the light and the beauty that I am. This is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Oh, now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am. Oh, this is the day when I throw it all away into the fire of the all-loving one. Oh, now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, for all beings. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all This is the day when I throw it all away to the fire of the all-loving one. Now I have just what I need to be free, to feel who I really am.
I'm just really appreciating this place. I'm really appreciating what I'm calling fusion spirituality. A little of this, a little of that. This is the only place that I know of that we can be inspired by Hindu music, Hindu chants, by two people called Lakshmi, who is the consort of Vishnu, and Ananda. I mean, I love it. This is pretty cool. And we're going to be celebrating the 4th of July, and we're going to have a prayer service, and we're going to be inspired not only by our founding fathers, but the Ramayana, which is probably the book of India. Just like we have the Bible, they had the Ramayana. Now, of course, they have the Vedas too, but that's for scholarly people that really want to get into it. But if you want just the story, they read the Ramayana. It is so honored, revered, and part of the culture that when TV came out and they serialized the Ramayana, everyone would be watching it. If it was time for the Ramayana to play, people were watching the Ramayana. And it had an influence on the culture like the Bible has an influence on our culture, even though you may not read it a lot. I'm talking about the Bible, not the Ramayana, because I'm sure you've all read that. But there's this thing in the Western culture called the Bible that some people read and some people don't. Even if you don't read it, you're influenced by the stories because people know the stories. Well, in India, people know the story of the Ramayana. I met this wonderful woman after first service, and she said, "You made the Ramayana come alive." She said, I'm not a Hindu, I'm not an anything, but I do know the Ramayana. So we'll be influenced by our founding fathers and the Ramayana, and we're going to pray, and we're going to see results, because that's what happens when a group of people come together in consciousness and say yes to the same thing. And so I am saying yes to your good. You're going to say yes to everybody else's good. So start thinking as I talk, what are you willing to accept today? What are you willing to accept? Because there's going to be a bunch of people accepting it for you, with you, and in league with you. I'm so excited. So let's have our first wonderful slide, because let's see why I could be excited. And that I want to start out with why I'm excited. This is from John Adams. And today's the day. Everybody's going to be celebrating the 4th of July. The Declaration of Independence was approved on July 2nd. Today. Now, there was a bunch of skirmish, and why we say it's the 4th of July is because it was approved, the document was approved in theory, and then the Continental Congress got their chance to edit it. According to Thomas Jefferson, they mutilated it 80 times, 80 changes to his document. He was appalled. And it was finally, the edited version was then approved. I mean, they'd already declared their independence, but the document was approved on the 4th. But according to John Adams, we should be celebrating on the 2nd day of July, 1776. We should have some drums. Come on. Come on. Come. A little rat-a-tat-tat. How would you do a little? The 2nd day of July, 1776, will be the most monumental epoch in the history of America. Woo, woo. I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God. Everybody? Ooh. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows and games and sports and guns and bells and bonfires and illuminations. From one end of this continent to the other. From this time forward, forevermore, can I hear an amen? John Adams. Now, aren't you just excited to be an American right now? I mean, how many hundreds of years ago was he talking about illuminations? And they have really happened. Now, here's the deal. I was listening to the radio as I came here this morning. Do you mind if I go over today? If it's a really good talk? Okay, great. If it's a really good talk, can we might be a little over? I was listening to the radio as I came here today, and it was a historian, and he said that the signing of the Declaration of Independence was probably the most foremost thing that has happened in modern history ever by human beings. I mean, Pompeii blowing up and stuff like that. That's pretty, amazing. But this was what human beings did. This was the most monumental event in modern history. Why? Because the Continental Congress and our founding fathers declared into existence a way of being that had never been in the world before. Now, democracy had existed in Greece, but democracy then sort of emerged. This was a declaration of freedom from a way of being in the world that had always been monarchy and subservient people. And these people said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, I've always loved the 4th of July because I get to read the Declaration of Independence again, and I get it. That is freaking amazing because it wasn't self-evident to anyone in the world except the Continental Congress. Now, how does that happen? See, there had been no evidence for that. It's like, if your mom comes in and says, you are a messy person, and you go, what do you mean? Well, it's self-evident. It's because she has evidence. There was no evidence. It was self-evident to them because they were not looking at what had been, they were looking at what was inside of them. And to the human soul, when you really look deeply, you will find something self-evident in you, and it will be your ability to be free. No matter what seems to be plaguing you. I think it was Viktor Frankl who said that freedom is the last, the way we think, our own internal freedom is the last thing they can take from us, and the only way they can take it is that we die. We have freedom till the last breath. How we function with our world is our freedom, and we have it forever until we decide to take it on a new world. So I've always loved this day. And what I realize is that we can do what they did. We can declare a new way of being in the world. And hopefully, if we declare it for ourselves and we declare some things uniformly, then it starts to ripple out like their declaration rippled out. Think of all the countries that started declaring themselves as free. Think of all the people who said, that's the way it should be. It had never been that way before. I honestly think we should saint them all. I mean, if the Catholic Church hasn't, we'll come up with a ceremony. St. Tommy and St. Johnny and... I'm being somewhat facetious, but honestly, I am in awe of what they did and where they had to come from to do that. So I would love for us to declare some new things into existence, and to do that, I want to use some examples of how to do that from the Ramayana. Like I said, the Ramayana is a book in India that is much like our Bible. People may not read it all the time, and they may not believe everything about it, but they do know the stories. And so I believe this is my own interpretation of Holy Scripture. Holy Scripture is usually brought to pass by someone who has an elevated consciousness of the way things are, and they can't talk about it. I mean, there's things that I get sometimes I can't talk about it. Like, I don't know that I could describe it. It's something that I know, but it's not something for publishing. For the general public, it's like, this is my intimate experience of spirit, and it is evolving all the time. And even if I said what I thought spirit was at this moment, if I'm doing my spiritual practice, it won't be the same next week. Because if you're in relationship with anything, another person, another human being, an animal, the great beyond, the more you are in relationship with it, the more it kind of reveals itself to you. So, I mean, really, isn't that true? I mean, people, honestly, I love you, but if you have the same God you did a year ago, then deepen your spiritual practice. And it will deepen its revelation of itself to you. And it is infinite and eternal, so there will be no end to the revelations. So these people have these experiences of something that makes so much sense to them, and they know that they can't always just describe it to people who don't have the time to also deepen their experience, but what they are getting will help everybody live better, so they create stories. So the Ramayana is a beautiful hero story. It's the perfect example of a hero's journey. But I'm not going to talk about the hero's journey. What I realized this time, the last time I read the Ramayana, is that whoever the author was, they stuck in all these little side stories that are so good that if you believe those side stories, you would duplicate those stories in your life, and you would change your life. So I'm going to share with you 3 stories out of the Ramayana that teaches 3 ways to pray as a declaration, so that you can declare something into existence. By the way, if we were really going to be if we really wanted to study the word prayer the way it was 2,000 years ago, prayer was never an ask. 2,000 years ago, prayer was never an ask. How many of you grew up thinking prayer was asking? Thank you for being so honest. Prayer was not meant to be asking, it was meant to be declarating. As a declaration, not declarating like your living room. I realize I used the wrong word. Yeah, well, it does kind of declarate your consciousness, but still, it's a declaration. It was meant to be a declaration. So, Ramayana, quick stories. They're so good. First of all, when the world was in another age and people lived as long as they wanted to live, there was a great king who lived in a great kingdom. And he had 3 beautiful wives. And the kingdom was prosperous, and the hills were beautiful, and the food was plentiful, and everybody was happy, and the streets were clean, and the people loved him, and they sang his praises, and he was 60,000 years old, and he finally discovered, you know what? Something's missing. I should have had a son. Sort of like, I should have had a V8. So at 60,000 years old, he says, I should have a son. I don't want to be here forever, and I need a son to pass this kingdom down to. So he decided to get together with a prayer practitioner. It was called a priest, but it was a prayer practitioner. And the prayer practitioner joined him in affirming and knowing that that he was ready for a son. So he asked for a son. he became aware of that was what he wanted. He got the prayer practitioner, the priest, with him. They built a fire. They put butter on the fire. The smoke circled up. I mean, how much smoke is, this is amazing. So many cultures want smoke in their prayers. They think the God says, smoke is in my eyes. Anyway, so they do this fire, the butter causes this smoke, and lo and behold, he not only has one son, he has 4. Kind of a weird sort of setup. He gave his wives rice, so maybe that's how they did it in that other age. But anyway, saying. The next story is that Indra was one of the mid-level gods. They had hierarchies. It was like a large company. Existence was a large company with Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva at the top, and all of these other gods, intermediary gods, and then human beings, and then what lived beneath, we're not really sure. And Indra was sort of like a higher-up, mid-level manager. And I always called him the whiny god because he's like, Brahma, they're doing this to me. Brahma, they're doing this to me. Brahma. He's always whining to Brahma. Well, eventually, he's told to go to Vishnu, which is the great sustainer, and Vishnu knows what he wants. So he goes to the high god, and Vishnu knows what he wants, but Vishnu says, you've got to say it. Now tell me what you want me to do. Tell me. Spell it out. Yes, I read your mind. Yes, I'm already ready. You have to say it. So he said it. He said what he wanted. And immediately, the process was set in motion because Vishnu said, it's already done. The next story is the story of Indra again. Indra shows up a lot. He should have his own sitcom, I think. Anyway, Indra shows up a lot. And he's being, once again, whining to Brahma, the creator. Whining to Brahma because some big bad demon named Nirvana put him in prison, took away all of his toys, and confined him. And he's reaching out to Brahma and saying, oh, Brahma, please help me. How many of you identify with this? How many of you identify with you're a really good person, and with circumstances way beyond your control, you're being victimized, and they're after you, and you look up to God and you say, please help me, God. Arr. Which is what's happening in the story of the Ramayana. And Brahma looks down and says, you know I don't get involved in any of the worlds. I create, that's all I do. I can't help you, I don't help humans. All I do is create. I created everything. Now you have everything within you to handle this, but I can't get involved. Brahma goes, this is awful, they've imprisoned me, please. So Brahma created again. And he created within Indra the thought, you are free. And as soon as Brahma had the thought, you are free, I am free, I am free, that thought became real and everything fell away. So how do we use that for ourselves? The first thing is, the 3 steps to praying effectively. This first step is admit what you want. Now, sometimes we know what we want, but we're afraid to admit what we want. How many of you have experienced that? You know what you want, but you don't really want to admit what you want. You don't want to admit it to others. You don't want to admit it to yourself. There's all sorts of reasons why we might not want to admit it, but we feel confined in a way to just say, this is what I want. Maybe it's embarrassing. Maybe it's too big. Maybe it's embarrassing. It's too small. Maybe we'll feel judged. But eventually, there's the process of saying, this is what calls me. The king had everything. He could have had everything. In 60,000 years, he could have had sons. But when he finally said, I want a son, he got 4. Are we really willing to say what we want? And are we willing to speak it to another? Are we willing to get the support of having another person listen to our request and affirm it with us? That's what prayer practitioners do. That's what ministers do. See, I realize that sometimes I am not willing to admit what I really want because I've already judged it as being inappropriate in some way, and I don't mean unlawful, but like ministers shouldn't want that. Or I should want this. Or if I was really holy, I'd only want this. I judge it as being inappropriate to share, or I judge it as being, what would I say, as too hard to demonstrate, so I just give up. You have to know it, and then you speak it to another. So you not only hear your voice, say it, you watch someone else listen to it, and it solidifies the prayer. Where two or more are gathered, it shall be done in heaven, which is mind, as it is on earth, which is manifestation. Where two or more. The next part, the next step. Declare your desire to the God of your understanding, and the God of your understanding is always changing. It does not matter if you're bowing down 5 times and facing Mecca, or if you are lighting a candle and in a chapel or a cathedral and watching the smoke go up, knowing that it is somehow getting Mary's attention. It doesn't matter. Ernest Holmes said it does not matter what you pray to or what you pray about, it's where you pray from. But if you have a connection to the divine and you are willing to know that God of your understanding is available and listening and compassionate and caring and giving and creative and powerful, then you've got the right idea. So you declare your desire to the God of your understanding. And as I said, if you continue to do your spiritual practice, the God of your understanding will always be shape-shifting. Because as you grow, you can know more. And as you know more, you'll grow more. And then you'll know more. And then you'll grow more. The last thing in creating this prayer is that you move into being the result of your desire. Being the result of your desire. Indra got free from the prison, not by praying away the walls, not by saying, "Oh, please save me," and being somehow lifted out. What happened was the idea, "I am free," took hold in his mind, and "I am free" freed him. That's how it works. I was thinking about that. It's one of the reasons why in one of my classes I encourage people to look up and to just listen to how they're being inspired from I'm not going to say from above, that's a metaphor, but being inspired beyond their personal knowledge, being inspired beyond personality, being inspired beyond history. What would be the download? That download will shift you forever. And the Gospel according to Thomas, and by many Bible scholars' ideas, the Gospel according to Thomas is probably the closest thing that we know to what Jesus really said. And in it says, "What is within you will save you. But if it does not come out of you, it will destroy you." So if you have a download and you speak it, then that download, that I'm free, I'm loved, I'm okay, that will save you and will shift your world of conditions. But if you get the download and you kind of hold it in, all it can do is cause chaos and conflict in your heart. It won't do its work. It can't do its work. What comes out of us saves us. That's why I'm only here to facilitate you remembering what you know deeply. There's nothing that I can say, and I don't think there's anyone on this earth that can say something that will really facilitate your transformation. But if we can facilitate you listening, you will find within yourself what it takes for your transformation. It's always inside you. Always. So I want to just share one last slide. And this impressed me, and I want to share it before we pray. Back to our founding fathers. We seem to have a motto right now, which is "In God We Trust." "In God We Trust" was not accepted as the U.S. motto until 1956. Yeah. Founding fathers didn't say "In God We Trust." The founding fathers said, blah, 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 which is Latin for out of many, one. Out of our many ideas, what they were probably thinking is, out of the many colonies, we will have one nation. But what a truth, just like the Declaration of Independence. Out of many ideas, many talents, many backgrounds, many opinions, there could be one. And I love this so much because in Beyond Limits, the first principle that we teach is oneness. And our founding fathers were revering oneness above everything else, even God. Out of the many, one. And so out of our many points of light, I think that was George W. Bush, wasn't it? I don't know, somebody. You're a point of light. You are a point of light. You're the place where God shows up. You are the light of the world. Out of all of these points of light, we can have one prayer that will bless all of us. So this is what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to do whatever it takes to get centered inside. Whatever it takes for you to take your attention, let my words guide you, but you're not putting your attention out here. I would like you to put your attention inside, if you would, if you want to be part of this, the creation of oneness. And I'd like you to ask your heart, what is it that I truly desire? Ask your heart, what is it that I'm finally willing to admit that I want? So your mind may go off in all sorts of directions. I forgot who it was that said, her head said she couldn't get these master's degree, and her heart said, yeah, let's go for the master's degree. So what does your heart want? When you know what your heart wants, raise your hand. And if you don't know what your heart wants, just sit there and just continually court that connection with your inner self. Now, for those of you that know, I want you to express that desire to the God of your understanding in a positive, affirmative way. In Beyond Limits, we teach that we are specific without outlining. So you're specific about what you want as the end result. What specifically do you want as the end result? Say it. In the beginning was the Word. You've spread all sorts of words around just this morning. Every time you thought about something, complained about something, worried about something, you were using the word. Now use the word in a very affirmative, positive, powerful way. Say it to the God of your being and the very essence of yourself, which is the only place you will connect with your God. Say what you want succinctly. And now, be the result you desire. Let the great Creator plant within you a statement of I am. If you had your desire, what would you be? Say that now, I am. Perhaps it is I am loved. I am sufficient. I am prospered. I am creative. I am serene. I am peaceful. I am joyful. Whatever it is, say that now. Hold it. Let it start to shift your consciousness. And then I speak the word. I guess I'm the prayer practitioner of the moment. I'm the priest. I'm lighting the fire. I'm putting the butter on the fire. And the smoke swirls up, and I speak my word that I absolutely know that the love intelligence of the universe, that which is and shall always be, that which creates, that which sustains, and that which destroys everything whose time has come, that which is eternally good, that which is eternally present. I know that it is receiving, knowing, and completing every prayer of every person in this room. I give thanks that before we asked, it was done. I give thanks that all that we are doing is we are putting into the law that which has already been born in us, and we are the vehicle through which it is accomplished. I give thanks that for every desire that expresses more life and harms no one, including the person praying, that desire is the will of God, and the will of God is always for good, and it will be better than we could imagine. The king asked for one son, he got 4. Be willing to open your heart right now to receive even greater than that which has been affirmed, because God's idea of good for us is really good. Breathe into that. And I just say, thank you, God. It is done. And so it is.